Hi, everyone. Welcome to our first, and I promise not our last, live webcast here on Taking the Lead. We are so appreciative that you're joining us tonight, and we're going to kick things off by telling you something about our moderator. Many of you know her, Deirdre Breakenridge. She's the CEO of Pure Performance Communications. She is a career-long storyteller and media expert, and I really think of her as an author, consultant, and most of all, a teacher in that space where marketing, PR, content, social, digital all meet. She's worked with senior leaders and organizations, including JVC, Kraft, NASDAQ, the NBA, and the Public Relations Society of America. She is the author of 7 business books. Her most recent one, her next one, is Answers for Ethical Marketers. That's coming out in April of 2021. Her last one, Answers for Modern Communicators, was recognized as among the top 100 storytelling books of all times. For 15 years, she's been teaching in the classroom or online with NYU, UMass, Rutgers, Fairleigh Dickinson University, and you can find her courses on PR and marketing on LinkedIn Learning. She's been blogging at PR Strategies for a decade now, and she's the host of the podcast Women Worldwide, which is nearing 2 million downloads. But most of all, I think of her as a friend and supporter. Here's Deirdre.
Thank you so much, Ken. This is it's amazing to be here with you. I appreciate the introduction, and hello, everyone. We're thrilled that you're joining us for the first Taking the Lead live stream. So, Ken, you must be super excited.
I don't know if excited is the word, but sure, let's go with that. Let's go with excited.
That sounds good to me. Well, Ken, before we introduce the other 2 PR experts, maybe we should get to some housekeeping. How's that sound?
Sounds good, as long as you do it.
Well, everyone, thank you again for being here. Just wanted to say, if you were trying to reach us or watch us live on YouTube, we had a bit of a hiccup, so we apologize for that, but we're just glad that you're with us now. And as we move through this program, if you have any questions at all, if you're watching on Facebook, which is Ken's business page, or maybe you're viewing on Twitter, please share your comments and ask your questions. We're going to address all questions towards the end of the program, so probably leave about 10 to 15 minutes for those questions. All right. Well, I think it's time to introduce our 2 PR experts. So joining us are Cheryl Overton. I'm going to pop Cheryl in, and also Michelle Egan. So hello and welcome.
Hi there.
Hello.
Well, it's good to see you. And I just want to take a moment, even though many of you may know Ken or Michelle or Cheryl, I thought I'd do maybe a little bit of the more formal introduction so you can really get to know them. So let's start with Cheryl first. Cheryl has a passion for brands and a real instinct for consumer insights. She's the founder and CXO of an integrated communications advisory, which helps brands navigate relationships with their stakeholders via the voices and persuasive power of multicultural consumers. And Cheryl is a sought-after counselor. She's also an industry award-winning professional. So that's right. She has an Emmy, a Cannes Lions, a Shorty, a Silver Anvil, and so many more awards that come along with her expertise. She's also a speaker on the topics of multicultural marketing as well as DEI communications. So Cheryl, we're just so happy you could be with us.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And then there is Michelle Egan. And Michelle is Chief Communications Officer at Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, which is the operator of the Trans-Alaska Pipeline System. And Michelle is responsible for managing all communications staff in not only Alaska, but also Washington, D.C. And among her many responsibilities, she is running the communications programs internally and externally. So yes, that means media relations, government relations, community relations, and pretty much all stakeholder relations. Michelle brings 25, well, actually 30, maybe 30 plus. I don't want to date you, Michelle, years of experience to her position. She is also a PRSA board member. She serves as treasurer, and she's a member of the PRSA College of Fellows. And last but not least, certainly the man of the hour is Ken Jacobs, who is an experienced consultant and certified coach. He's got PCC and CPC as credentials after his name. And Ken is the principal of Jacobs Consulting and Executive Coaching. And this is a firm for the last 10 years, which has been helping agencies to grow and manage business and improve customer service and relationships, and really to enhance staff performance through consulting and training. And now Ken is also an executive coach at the C-suite, right? Working with executives so they can exceed, actually surpass their goals. Now, Ken has spent 25 years in different management and leadership positions. So he was at agencies including Ogilvy and Mather, Public Relations, and Marina Marr, Communications. And also, I just want to point out how much Ken shares. He's so generous with his thought leadership. He writes a column, it's quarterly, for PRSA's Public Relations Tactics. And he also weighs in on pressing leadership topics with his guests on his Taking the Lead video podcast. So all of you, thank you so much. Welcome. And we're going to kick this off. Now, we want to talk about all of these lessons that we've learned, right, over the past year with a global pandemic. But most importantly, what we're moving forward in 2021 so that we can grow and create impact and empower people. So Cheryl, I'm actually going to start with you and maybe one of your lessons. But what can you share around organizations and culture during a pandemic and your tips moving forward?
Sure. I think one of the things that the pandemic has given us, and maybe as a silver lining, or is that it makes us actually have to lean in a little bit harder to making sure we maintain a sense of culture. Some of the things that we might have taken for granted in the old days, seeing people every day, chatting as we're walking down the hall, gathering around the microwave or, the coffee machine. We don't have those things at our disposal as readily. So for me, it's really important to still create that sense of personal connection, that sense of, asking about the human, not the worker, when we have those opportunities. So some of the things that I'm doing just to be very intentional now that everybody is so zoomed in all the time is to really make sure to build some time into whatever our meeting time is together, to really center the humanity. And so one way to do that is asking folks when we start off a meeting, start with good news. Like, what's your good news today? And even people might not have even had the chance to think, especially if it's first thing in the morning, well, what is my good news today? But something good probably happened already. And so it just sort of gets, you in the mindset to think about something positive or something grateful or something to just be appreciated. It sort of changes the tone of a meeting you might have been dreading into something like, oh, okay, I can do this. We have so many Zoom meetings with many players and many participants. One thing that I also try to make sure that is we're leaving room for one-on-one meetings. It's good to sometimes, I know we have to be efficient and get as many voices as possible, but really making sure, even if it's a fast 15, penciling time for those one-on-ones so that people feel seen, feel heard, feel valued, and that you're spending that time that you used to have, when we popped by one another's offices. Trying to do that more intentionally now are two of the things that I'm doing that I'm finding is keeping me connected with people. And I think that shows in the work as well.
Absolutely. I mean, just the whole notion of trying to keep your culture together when everybody is so spread apart. I think what you're doing, it humanizes everybody. The sharing is really great. I also think it's a time to focus on the culture in terms of reinforcing those values, what's important, and getting people to really bond together. So I like that you're doing that. Any thoughts from you, Michelle or Ken, on culture and organization during the pandemic?
Well, I think it can be more challenging, but it's that much more important. And, this notion of why are we here every day? What are our shared values? And you don't have to share all values with everyone in the organization, but there are certain things that bring us together. And I think to some degree that's been challenged. But on the other hand, it's an opportunity for that bonding and maybe help us overcome the distance, the Zooming, and what have you.
Absolutely. Michelle, did you have something?
Well, I think 2020 really rocked the opportunities for us in that area. And, it was so vulnerable a time for cultures and, not just COVID and remote work, but also racial unrest, the murder of George Floyd, a very difficult election. I mean, a lot of things that could undermine a culture that you've tried to build. And so Cheryl's absolutely right. We're really connecting with people on the real issues has to happen before any work can happen.
Yes, and having those open conversations sometimes that can be difficult. Now, Michelle, you had a lesson that was about understanding leadership as a team sport. So what will you share about that learning lesson?
Well, I'll set the scene just briefly. So in my company, we went into 2020 with a new president of the company. Then we had stood up a COVID incident management team before COVID got to our location. Then we went remote. Then we had an unrelated incident that had a second incident management team on top of it. So for my team of communicators, it was just a very, very rocky, stressful time, and they did an amazing job. But one thing I learned in trying to do my job and help them do their jobs is that we can't all do everything. And there was a moment, and then several that followed, when I looked at my my step up, the number 2 in my department, and said, I got nothing left in the tank. You're going to have to take this today. I worked, but I did not get on camera with my team, and she did an amazing job. She stepped right up to it. And we've learned from there to really continue with that. There's some things she's really good at in leading, and there are other things, that I step in for. So it's a team sport, and everyone on the team can do some aspect of leadership, and we have to share the load. So tips, number 1 is, look for opportunities to share leadership. Even your most junior people can do something to share in the leadership. And I think Cheryl mentioned this, you have to watch for clues in yourself and others when it's time to say, I need to take a pass today. You take this. And then also be vulnerable. We talked about it as a team, right? We're not all going to be able to be on top of our game during this kind of situation. So I'm going to step back for the day and gather myself, and then she's going to get a chance to do that tomorrow or the next day.
Absolutely. And it definitely takes, you have to trust, number 1, have trust in one another, and also be able to ask for help. And I know sometimes that's hard for leaders to do.
Absolutely.
Well,
I love that what you shared, Michelle. I'm sorry, Deirdre.
Go ahead.
I love that you found sort of a simple way to not only give yourself some relief, but to really honor and give someone else, share the mic was a thing last summer that many creators use, but I think we can do that a little bit more every day. I think there's a quote that says, you don't need a fancy title to be a leader. You just need somebody who's willing to follow you. And all too often, I think, especially with the stresses and the challenges of the past year, as leaders who have a lot of responsibility and people who rely on them, it almost has become a default. I better do it myself. I better not take that chance. But it's now that we have to really take that chance and give other people an opportunity to step up, but really to step in. Like maybe we're hogging, and that could be a blind spot. So I love the example that you gave, because it's something we could all do very easily every day. We could say less sometimes and just leave space for others. We get nervous, like, I have to do this business, I have to do this meeting, but maybe sometimes that's a really good opportunity to just, I'm going to lay back, I'm going to be off camera, I'm going to say less, and I'll coach and prepare and encourage that person to step into that space, so that they're getting that opportunity as well.
I think it was also a time that we learned, at least on my team and others that I've talked to, especially in communications, we think everyone's supposed to be able to do all the things. So you have four positions, they're all the same. Well, not all those people have the same strengths. And so I was trying to say, okay, I know your strength might be technology, but I also need you to do, community relations and, social media and be a really great writer. And what my team learned last year was I need to call the person who's really great with technology, and I'm going to go ahead and write that for him. Right. And on it went, but it all has to fit together.
That's true.
I think one thing about all this and what I'm hearing from what you're both saying, it just emphasizes for me the importance of empathy, to know how everyone is doing, to have your antenna on high for that, and trust your gut. And if your sense is that someone's not doing well, to Cheryl's point, do that one-on-one, check in with them. Many people did well during parts of the last year. Some didn't do as well as others. And if you're on a call or a Zoom or Microsoft Teams and everyone is talking about how well they're doing and you're not doing well, you may not share that. So the leader has to really read the energy in the room, even through the laptop. And to Cheryl's point, continue those one-on-ones and check, how are you doing? Because organizations, I think, have shown a lot of flexibility in taking care of people, or at least they should have. But I think many have stepped up in that regard.
Ken, on your point of the one-on-ones and sharing the feedback, I know, having studied and mentored so many younger professionals, that is really appreciated. They are looking for that feedback. And it also feels good when you can pass the mic, so to speak, give them the opportunity. They love it, but they do want to hear, how did I do? What can I do better? And maybe they do need a little more help. So excellent. Well, Ken, one of your lessons was around the leadership or leader's mindset. And specifically, it's the opportunity thinking, which can be contagious. So maybe you could share a little bit about that and your tips.
Yeah. I think one thing we've seen is the impact of the leader's mindset. And I've seen many and coached some that were caught up in the, oh my gosh, our business is going away. Our client's business is going away. Am I going to have to do salary cuts? Am I going to have to do layoffs? And many did, but some got caught up in that thinking. And, I always say, the good news is, but the bad word choice, energy is contagious. We have to be mindful of that word choice now, but it really comes to play. So if you're caught up in that, oh my gosh, and this is so challenging. These times are so challenging. If that's where the leader lives, that's where your followers, your team, your peers, your stakeholders will live as well. Whereas if you live in the opportunity and you say, what can we do? How can we pivot? What other industry sectors should we be serving? What other services can we offer? And we've seen so many leaders be able to pivot because of that opportunity mindset. And then we've seen their followers follow, which we fully expect. So, if you believed we will get through this, you increase the chance we will get through it. And teams responded accordingly. So I think that maybe the lesson for the future in that is that we can all become better students of neuroplasticity, the ability of these things, these brains to change. Many people we work with say, oh, I'm hardwired that way. Well, the science says no. The science says we can retrain parts of our brain to learn new approaches, to learn new attitudes, to accept, to grow, to be creative. So I'm encouraging all my clients to learn how to ask open-ended, empowering questions. And that allows your followers for their brains to, rewire and be open. And by asking empowering questions, we're literally lighting up a different part of the listener's brain, and we're lighting up the part of the brain where passion and inspiration and creativity and engagement and motivation and buy-in live. So my mantra, when I switched from becoming a PR person, which is basically a consultant, and wanting to add on the coaching, my mantra became, don't tell, ask.
That's great. And Ken, I know I've mentioned this book to you before. I love that you can teach an old dog new tricks and you can carve new pathways in the brain. But one of the books that I recommended to you that I'd like to share with everybody is Charles Duhigg and The Power of Habit. And that book teaches you how to change your habits. And it's all about carving new paths. And sometimes we do get set in our ways and we don't need to. And we can help others to change as well. So that was really good. Good stuff moving forward in 2021. So Cheryl, we've talked about how trying to keep culture together, the team sport, the mindset, but let's face it, there is Zoom fatigue. That is one of your lessons. So maybe you can share there and tips moving forward.
For sure. It feels, I think, a few months into the pandemic, we were all wondering, is it just me or do I feel more exhausted? Do I feel more, just drained at the end of the day? And, now that we are a year in, there's a lot of data out there being published that, physically being in this sort of situation, being on screens all day with the lighting, with the blue lights, everything, it is more physically exhausting and certainly emotionally exhausting. So we can't not, sometimes this is our way of seeing each other. So we can't completely eradicate it. But some of the things that I've tried to do and that I'm instituting, and frankly, that I'm learning from other people who are doing it, I would do this prior to the pandemic. I would take meetings and do what I would call power walks. Take a meeting out of the office, do it during a walk. That's a chance to stretch your legs. It's certainly not for exercise. No one's kicking up a sweat. But I've kept power walks in my repertoire and in my schedule. Quite obviously, you can't do that if you're presenting slides or something like that. But if it is a conversation, the power walks are really great because it works to sort of get us out of the house, get us into some fresh air and into our bodies. But it's another way to do it that keeps us sort of off the Zoom. Old school teleconferences also work really well, as a change of pace, when people are like, I don't see the link. You didn't get a link. It's a phone number. And that's a surprising thing. I know that we're supposed to be super present always in these meetings. And I'm a big believer, of course, in presence, but I'm also now a bit of a believer in intentional multitasking. And what that might mean is we all agree. I participate in 2 nonprofit boards, and one of them had a retreat recently, and we did an exercise where some crafts were sent, and we all sort of participated in a craft thing while we were talking in one segment. So we were off camera, all sort of creating something, and then when we came on camera, we revealed. I've also done that with snacks. We're all doing sort of PB&J and crackers, something simple, something that's not expensive to send to everyone, but we have that chance to sort of be allowed to be off camera, have your hands busy, look at something else. And it's fun, just to keep it there. I think for those calls when we're so back to back Zooms all day, Zoom, Teams, etc. One thing that I think is fun, if you have time in the meeting, is to maybe break it up with a little old school show and tell. We're all working at home, and maybe you've got your child or your pet or your favorite stuffed animal or your favorite cocktail glass. And maybe we sort of, we take a few minutes at the beginning and do a little show and tell. So if we've got to be on screen, let's play it up a little bit. And I know a lot of groups are having a lot of fun with it, wearing your favorite onesie or, your most broken in jeans or something. I think anything we could do to just sort of break up what we're doing. I sit sort of at a table with all the lights set a certain way, but maybe go sit on the sofa, and so be it. And to encourage that. So I've just tried to have some fun with it and to keep it a little bit of a surprise. So that doesn't become rote too.
I love that. Well, it's interesting. I was just on a call where each one of us would say to the other person, can you explain what that is in your background? What is that book? What is that trophy?
Yeah.
And it was just a really fun way to learn about your teammates and to break it up, just like you said. It broke.
Can I weigh in on something Cheryl said?
Sure.
This notion that we're all, hour by hour by hour by hour, I don't think is helping anyone. And I think being willing to either book them, if someone books 45 minutes, ask them, hey, can we do it in 30? If they book an hour, can we do it in 45? Let's be intentional, to use your word, about our meeting. We've got to give ourselves breaks because there's an energy we used to get from in-person meetings we may not be getting from Zoom. And we need a little downtime. We need 10 or 15 minutes in between. And so people say to me, well, how can I do that? I've got 9 meetings. And I say, I want you to think about the fact that better you should have 7 meetings when you're really there. You're intentional, you're bringing your best, you're focused. I call it unitasking. You're really with people or you're really concentrating on something for 15 or 20 minutes. It's a matter of quality over quantity. And you're bringing more of yourself and you're bringing more value to your peers, teams, clients. It takes some thinking, but I've seen people be willing to adapt and adopt it, and I've learned it works.
Absolutely.
It reminds me of a couple of things, if it's okay. We had one of our HR generalists come to one of our staff meetings, and it's a difficult time for HR, right? They're doing all kinds of management of people's lives, and there's furloughs and there's remote work and name your thing. And so people have a lot of questions about how things are going to work. And so they get called to these Zoom meetings all the time. Well, I had her come to our staff meeting just as a guest, and she shows up in this crazy outfit and this like purple wig with big glasses, and just like that's how she sat through the whole meeting and talked to us about what's going on in HR and how they were managing people who needed to get tested before they came to work. And it was just a great surprise, and really ties into what you were saying, Cheryl. You've got to be the right person for that. But
that's true.
I also saw an article just the other day on LinkedIn that connects with what you're saying, Ken. I think it was an Inc. Magazine article about not scheduling so many meetings, but having some of them be office hours. So everyone in your group says this is going to be the office hour that we're going to keep. And then instead of having a meeting, if you need to go talk to somebody about a project or an effort, they're having their office hour while you are, and that's the time that you drop in. I thought that was pretty creative as well.
Yeah. And I imagine everyone's heard that Citibank has declared Fridays no Zoom day, which I think is a very interesting experiment.
I think that's a great idea to have one day no Zoom, because then you can figure out other kinds of touch points, which leads to our next lesson, Michelle. So how can we find ways to have one-on-one touch points that maybe aren't so Zoom oriented so that we can see people and know where they are?
Yeah, I think, we've kind of touched on this a lot already, but this has been a hard year for people. You can kind of see what's going on in the background in their house. And, we talked about all the issues of this year. And so this concept of seeing people's humanity is really something that's been driven home for me over and over again this year. And as a leader, or just as a person, engaging with the people around me, really stopping and listening and making sure that I'm not multitasking. I mean, of course, there are times when you have to do that, but prior to COVID, I'm on the run. You need me, you gotta let me know. And I'm probably still on my way out the door. And I've had to, because of the technology and because of the situations, really stop and listen and look people in the eye. And that's something I'm taking with me, is that very deliberate focus on what people need from other people right now. The issues that that all of us are facing are really complex. And it's been a real joy to make that time. We have, in our company, we have safety minutes at the beginning of each meeting, and we also have culture minutes. And so, a safety minute and then a culture minute. And people have been really digging deep for their culture minutes, and they can be about something that's going on with them. It could be about mental health. It could be about racism. It could be, about the election, how they're feeling. It's been a real gift to be able to have that and have people share. And I know for my team, they feel a lot more connected to each other. One of the things that's been a hurdle for us in the past is that many of us are located centrally, and then we have people in remote locations, field locations. So one person over here, one person over there, one person in DC. I know that they have always felt at a disadvantage because they think we're collaborating and we're getting all this great creative, flow going, which isn't necessarily true. But this really leveled the playing field for everyone. Everyone was equally disadvantaged, and we tried to make the most of that. And I really want to hang on to that going forward, even when we come back in person.
Tying back, we've talked multitasking and unitasking. I'm going to tie that back to the brain, which is, I hope one of the things we've learned is this myth that we can effectively multitask. We seem to have the technology that allows that, but then you've got this thing, and we are not hardwired for that. We are not hardwired to do two executive activities at once. We might think we can, but we can't. And we forget that the brain needs time to recover from interruptions, to recover from pings, to recover from, what we're getting in our email. So I think let's acknowledge how the brain works. And I use the notion of unitasking, really deep focus, 15, 20 minutes, everything else turned off, even 30 minutes if you can spare it. You would be amazed at how much you can get done if you just focus and think without all those interruptions. So that ties back not to the notion of the mindset, but to the leader's brain and all our brains.
Yeah, absolutely. Michelle, just going back to what you said with I think you said a safety minute and the culture minute.
Right. Mm-hmm.
In order for people to share, it's so refreshing to hear you speak this way, because you can offer these opportunities for sharing, but people won't discuss what's going on with their mental health or anything that's affecting them if there's not some sort of level of trust, or if they don't feel secure in their environment. So that really speaks to your organization, having that safe space where somebody can bring something up. That's excellent.
Well, it's a constant challenge, right? It's a culture issue that we have to work on all the time. I think a really important component is doing away with this concept that there's a perfect leader who has a perfect life and is going to put on a perfect face every time they come to the party. I share things from my personal life that are difficult. I don't tell long, big stories about them, but something's going on with my family, or, when my kids needs help with something, I'm not too shy about sharing it, because we're all in the same kind of soup of humanity. And I think that helps to build trust.
Absolutely. When a leader can share and be vulnerable, then other people feel like they can too. Mm-hmm. Definitely. All great points. So Ken, we touched a little bit about being present, and you said the unitasking and having a clear mind. A lot of this does speak to the emotional state and emotional intelligence and that awareness we bring. So maybe you can talk about that in terms of lesson and tips moving forward.
Yeah. Emotion is the leader's emotional state is so important and impactful. And so when they can bring things like courage and humility and humanity, empathy and agility, it can have a profound impact on the organization, and I've seen that. Leaders who are able to create new vision for the times, to have the vulnerability to say, I don't necessarily know the way forward, but I believe this is the right way. And I need you all in the boat with me. I love cliches, by the way, because they've stood the test of time. So just be warned, cliche warning. But I need you in the boat with me, and here's the direction we're going to go. And I feel that's going to get there. And if you're really feeling courageous to say, I don't know that it's right, but we're going to set out. And if we find that this isn't the exact right path to get there, we're smart, we're intuitive, we'll figure it out. I know we have the ability to get through this. And that kind of courage, when you look, I'm a history geek, but when you look through our leaders in history, Martin Luther King Jr., Malala, Lincoln, Harriet Tubman, so many others, FDR during World War II, when they brought that kind of courage in some of the most frightening times, that allowed their followers to be brave and to move forward. And, they changed the world, right? They helped people go from slavery to freedom. They got through the Depression and World War II, our grandparents and great-grands or great-great-grands, I don't know at that point. And that's by having that courage to lead. And that, again, using the expression before, is contagious. And it allows your people to have courage and know we're going to get there. We don't yet know what that new normal will look like, but we're going to be better.
Absolutely.
So I think the recommendation going forward is to understand and harness emotional intelligence. I've heard leaders say over the years, well, I wish I could remove emotion from the workplace. And I think they're wrong. Now, I think what they mean is, if you've ever been in workplaces with conflict or a lot of tears or anger or shouting, yeah, that's not always optimal. But remember, when people feel passionate and inspired and supported and supporting others, those are emotions too. So let's recognize what a gift we get to lead emotional human beings. And if leaders can better understand their emotional intelligence, that is another great opportunity to build your followership and bring your organization where you'd like it to be in the future.
Yes. And I want to throw this out to all three of you, because when it comes to emotional intelligence, we talk a lot about handling our own emotions, being self-aware and self-management so as to manage others' emotions. But also a part of that emotional intelligence is the self-reflection piece. And I guess I'll throw it out to the three of you as a group to maybe comment on it. And what is the best way to self-reflect? And is that at the end of the day, or is that right afterward? How should other leaders be self-reflective to be more emotionally intelligent?
I'll start. This is like through confessions. I had a pretty active yoga practice, and then a pretty good mindfulness practice. And I tend to get into stressful situations, and it becomes, I don't have time for that. Like, I don't have time for mindfulness. Right? Be mindful. But I do think, not that everyone needs to have that kind of practice, but I think recognizing when you do need to take a walk, like Cheryl's example, or, stop and read a book, put down the devices, journal. Journaling is an excellent activity. Mm-hmm. And honestly, sometimes I know we're talking about business and leadership and things that we might read and consume, but sometimes I like to just consume something that's completely different. It's about medicine, or it's about, art or music. That's a place where you can kind of recharge and be reflective. But it's the work in progress for me.
I think, and I've shared this before, just in talking with friends and colleagues about sort of the tools and resources I've brought in, over the past year or so, just to keep myself steady. And I think, in the pre world, my squad was like a glam squad, the person who cuts my hair, the manicurist, the facial person, whatever, we can't see those people as regularly, but I still have a squad. It's my trainer. It's an executive coach. It's my professional advisory board. It's my, text change with my best girlfriends, from college. It's the text message chain with, friends and family who don't live locally. To me, what's most important about that sort of self-reflection is holding up a mirror and stay surrounded by people who will tell you the truth. And there will be no consequences. I can't be unrelated to you, so I better take the information. Or you're my advisors, in business because we have a similar peer journey, or we've gone through this. I'm hearing you. I think that prioritizing the time and letting people in and really being willing to receive that feedback has been such a gift that I might have had little samples of this over the years, but I have really doubled down on it in the past year. And I think that it's so enriching. It sort of opens my mind up. It sort of helps you just sort of, your intention might not be the yield that it's giving. And so that keeps you honest and keeps you forever growing and changing. And then, even during the pandemic, finding ways to prioritize health and movement. I'm by no means a gym rat, never will be, but really making sure I've been working out with a trainer, and that sort of mind-body connection has been so fantastic. I'm never going to be one of those people who loves it, but I like, as Ken was saying earlier, I like the way it feels and I like the results. It's just maybe improving. To be a leader, you have to be fit in every way. And so just understanding that and taking those resources that you can create for yourself, as well as ones that maybe you might need that outside motivation or perspective. To me, that's been great. Something I've prioritized, especially in the past year.
Absolutely. What a great soundbite. As a leader, you have to be fit in every way. I love it, Cheryl. Ken, did you want to comment?
Well, can I play with our run of show and go to my third point because it's connected to these? So,
sure.
Behind the scenes. So no,
jump right in.
But I think leaders really do need to take care of themselves, to take care of their teams and their organizations. And it's just like when you're on the plane and they say, put on your oxygen mask before you put on the mask of your traveling companions. That is just the perfect analogy. Leaders must take care of themselves, mind, body, soul, physical, for a couple of reasons. A, it'll allow you to lead better, and B, you'll be a role model for your people, for your teams. And when I do a coaching session and a leader says, I couldn't do my physical workout. I couldn't do my yoga. I couldn't do my walk. I couldn't do my meditation. I couldn't do my mindfulness. And I'll ask why. Well, the CEO was, a big meeting and the thing was due and a new program was due. And I said, you think you shared all the reasons why you didn't have time for those 3, 4, 5 things. Those reasons are exactly why you need to do those things, because you will better be able to respond to any situation, if it's there. So I think the lesson going forward is that if at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, you started getting into physical yoga, mindfulness, meditation, walking, and you've let it lapse, get back into it. Make it part of your ongoing leadership style. Because if you take care of yourself, you will be able to take care of your folks and, whatever may come your way. It allows for a flexibility and an adaptability and, frankly, more enjoyment.
Absolutely. And Cheryl, this dovetails with one of your lessons around normalizing the self-care and kind of that work-life integration for teams, clients, and partners. Anything you want to share around that?
I think what Ken said is just really profound. Not only do it, but demonstrate it. Let people know it's okay, and really leave them time and space to share what their strategies are, and really be respectful of it. I think some of the things I encourage, I speak to, young people, and I say, make an appointment with yourself that cannot be moved. I don't kind of care if you're boss, manager, client, like you can make time on the calendar that can't be moved. You have to sort of pay yourself first in that respect. And if that's the time you need to do the walk, to do the exercise, to watch Judge Judy, like, you know, your therapy is none of my business, but do it, you know, and really like make that a date that you can't move. And I think it's really helpful also. And Michelle talked about vulnerability. I think it's fine to share that these are the things that you're using, because someone else might find that it's useful to them if they haven't thought of it, or they might then be willing to share what they're doing. One other thing I wanted to just mention, because I thought it was really interesting what Michelle said about the safety moments and the culture moments. And I love that, you know, if that's part of what makes her group sing. We also, as leaders, have to be mindful that sometimes people don't want to do that. And that's got to be okay too. I know I work with a lot of organizations, particularly around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And in the past year or so, particularly for Black employees and people, it's a time where you are being called upon, whether it's your expertise or not, to answer this. Tell me about the culture. Tell me how you're feeling. Tell me, what can we do? Give us a solution. People get tired. You're living with it. You've been living with it. Now the rest of the world is now more aware and very interested, hopefully genuinely interested in solutions. But sometimes with all the town halls, with the different moments at the beginning and shares and things, sometimes you just don't have it in you. And it doesn't mean that you want to be standoffish. It doesn't mean that you want to be distrustful of your, you know, work community, but it just means sometimes I want to talk about Bridgerton and I need that to be okay, you know? So I think as leaders, we have to just understand the modulation. It's great to create space. It's amazing to create safe space. But there are always times where not everybody wants to do it. And we have to make sure to not be biased about what that means. Sometimes right. we have to really be mindful of that. So, because I understand that in some organizations, when people opt out of those shares, it might have nothing to do with that gathering. It actually could, and we should be open to that, but it might not be. And then it's creating a new layer of, well, Johnny doesn't participate, so let's not include him. We can't let that happen.
Right. Yeah, I have learned so much this year from listening and being uncomfortable. And that's so important. And also hearing just what you said. Like, I'm not the one who's going to tell you how that works, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I will just clarify, when it comes to like the safety and culture minutes, they should be prepared. Not people should come prepared, but sure, someone is going to give a safety minute and it's going to be on driving on ice. And then someone's going to culture minute and it's going to be about United Way, right? It's not really a free for all. And I think if people want to use that, they should kind of combine what the two of us said and recognize it. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It's only safe if it's safe.
That's right. That's right. Not everybody is looking at it that way. So I just thought I'd say.
No, it's great. Really good points. Well, we are at the point of our program where I'm going to ask you for parting thoughts before we get to Q&A. So maybe we can round robin, and we're going to start with you, Ken. Any parting leadership thoughts?
Well, you know, I think if we have one leadership skill for leaders to tap right now, I'm going to give you two. What I mentioned before, which is courage. You know, people have been through such tough and for many frightening times. It appears that there's some light at the end of the tunnel because of vaccination. But at the same time, I think all of this, whatever this is going to be with us for a while. And we don't really know if things will be back to sort of normal, whatever that might mean. Will it be this September? Will it be the end of the year? Will it be next spring? What's the impact of the variants? What's the impact of, now that we're getting vaccinated, will people maintain the social distancing and other behaviors? So knowing that it's still for some people frightening and exhausting, being courageous is so important, because that gives your people security. So I would focus there. I said I was going to do 2. I'm going to leave it with that one.
Okay. Well, thank you. Okay, Michelle, how about you?
2020 was really hard. And 2021 is starting off with plenty of hard things as well. I think if there's one thing that I would take away and encourage other people to reflect on is you got to get comfortable with ambiguity. It's here. It's here no matter what the topic is. And Ken talked earlier about being able to be flexible and nimble and not having all the answers. That is the name of the game going forward. So figure out how you got comfortable with ambiguity in 2020 and how you can take it forward. I know that's one thing I'm thinking about. Excellent.
And Cheryl, how about you?
I guess I would say, if I'm thinking about a very important leadership skill, I think to me the 2 most important are vision, but the other one is listening. And I think wherever you are in your professional journey, if you are a leader currently, if you're building that muscle, if you're building that profile for yourself, the vision is something that you might have to cultivate, but the listening is something you can do today. And so I would encourage everyone to really exercise that listening muscle, and to really, that is a sign of the best leaders are great active listeners, because they know how to take what they hear, what they observe, and build it back into pouring into the business, pouring into their people. So if somebody is a very junior person on a team, but they are ambitious and want to be a leader, that's one thing they can do today to start to cultivate that skill.
Excellent. Listening. I'm going to piggyback on that for my parting thought, because I'll just share that with everything that's gone on in 2020 and how we're starting out in 2021, you never really know how somebody feels. And I do believe that people send your colleagues and peers, they send signals, cues all of the time. There are verbal cues and there's body language cues. But if you're not present, if you're not aware, if you don't have that emotional intelligence, if you're not listening, you're never going to catch those cues. And they are so important in your organizations. They're important in your personal lives. So I would just say to tune in, tune out a lot of the external. We talked about the technology, and really tune into the people around you, and you will build better relationships, and you'll be more of a team and create impact and be empowered together. So that's my parting thought. And now it's time. We have a few minutes left. So I do have some questions as people who are watching, as they're gathering their questions. I'm not going to be shy with some questions that I'm going to ask you. So Michelle, I'm going to start with you first. What happens if you have a new team member or team members who aren't up to the task of leadership? How do you share leadership in that scenario?
Yeah, great question. I think it's looking for little ways. So one of the things my predecessor did that was a huge gift to me was he had someone else on the team run the staff meetings. Just facilitate the staff meetings, send out the agenda, etc. Not a hard task. But take some leadership, take some organization, and then that allows the leader to sit back and really observe and participate. That's the kind of task that you can share and build in a leader. So just one quick one.
That was really good. Mm-hmm. And here's another. Does anybody else want to comment on that, or can I move to the next question? Okay, I'm going to move right on. So here's one for you, Cheryl. Oh, I love this one. And maybe we could all answer. Who's a business leader that inspires you and why?
There are a few. I guess one that's on my mind today and this week especially, I heard her speak last week, is Issa Rae. And she is she has a media empire that she's building, but she's a content creator, she's a performer, she's a writer, she's an entrepreneur, and she's an enabler, but in the best way, of other talent. And she has just recently signed a multi-million-dollar deal with Warner Media because she has been true to herself and her voice, her commitment to telling inclusive stories. And in fact, her commitment to intra-racial diversity and telling stories of, Black women, and some are awkward and some are geeks and some are egotistical and some are, damaged. And she shares it all through her entertainment platform and has now created inroads for other creators to do the same. And so I am really inspired by how she has embraced it, how even as a young person coming up in the business, she has been unwavering her vision. And over the years, the industry has caught up and are rewarding her and giving her more platforms to not only create her work, but to share the space with other artists who maybe even 10 years ago wouldn't have gotten that. So she really inspires me, and I watch her as a fan. I watch her as a businesswoman with great interest.
That's a awesome, inspirational woman. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else want to share a business leader who inspires you?
I'll share one that's a little bit off the charts there. Not really a business leader, but also a business leader is the coach of the Seattle Seahawks, Pete Carroll, is an incredible leader. And I have just watched him over the years and the things that he'll say about players. I read an article where 2 kickers had problems in a game. One coach said, "You're the kicker. You're in the NFL. You got to just make the kick," right? They both failed, his and this other coach. And then juxtaposed with his, he said, "He's our guy. We love him. He's in the game for us. We're going to see you again next week." He's just embraced the idea of community and the idea of 12s, which is, the 12th man or the fans actually making the team.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
So just that concept, the concepts he brings, I think are very tied into the way we've been talking today.
Excellent. Ken, did you have one?
Yeah, absolutely. Someone that at least 3 of us know and are friends with, but Patrice Tanaka of Joyful Planet. She was a PR agency founder, leader, chair, CEO, creative director, head of consumer, and then eventually left the agency business and created a whole new business, helping people find their joy, their passion, their purpose. And it's all about, making the world a more joyful planet. And she really does it. And she helped me many years ago connect with my destiny of becoming an executive coach.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
I'm just indebted to her for many ways. She's been just such a wonderful connector, supporter from the moment we met in 1993. I mean, and everyone she's connected me to and introduced me to has just been amazing and awesome. And so I just find her inspirational in the way she's found her passion and her purpose and her life.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I know
Michelle,
Patrice.
if you don't know her yet, we're going to connect you.
Anybody who doesn't know Patrice, we will definitely connect you. Yeah. That is a good one. And I'll just add, and I don't know why, but she popped into my mind, Indra Nooyi. Mm-hmm. She was somebody who, well, first of all, she was the CEO of PepsiCo, and she's since stepped down. But I remember reading that she went over to India to visit her parents. And as she was there, and as people were coming into the house and they were speaking to her parents, she realized that her parents were very much responsible for her success. So when she went back to the United States, she decided to write letters to the parents of all of her executive team members to thank them. And I just was so taken by that and so inspired. Being a parent and thinking about my parents and however way you want to look at this, that was just something that I really thought was special, inspirational, and that more of us should do, should consider. So I did like that. Okay, let's get a question over to Ken. Some people often use the terms leadership and management interchangeably. You disagree. Why?
Vehemently. I don't agree at all. And both are good and both are important. And many people prove themselves as good managers before they become leaders. But management to me is always about managing things, accounts, budgets, production schedules, timetables, deliverables, but generally they're things. But then at a certain point, you choose to make that conscious decision to lead human beings, right? To lead people. And then they have a choice. Your name, it's not about the corner office, the salary, where you are on the organizational chart. Your name could be on their paycheck, doesn't matter. You need to make that conscious decision to be a leader, and they make the conscious decision to follow you or not. And when you embrace that, that's a game changer. So whenever I hear people say, I'm managing people, I'm like, well, you may be. How would it feel to lead people? What does that mean?
Yes.
So
excellent. I think we're going to end on that note as leaders making a conscious decision to lead. And with that, we are going to end our program this evening. Just want to thank everybody. Cheryl, thank you so much. Michelle, Ken, what an interesting and informative discussion. Thank you for being a part of this tonight. And a big thank you to everyone and anyone who's watching. We appreciate you tuning in. And looking forward to everybody taking the lead moving forward. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody.
good night, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.